How many of us scroll through our phone or go to the fridge in search of some pleasure, instead of doing a boring but necessary task? This is because we are in search of a dopamine hit that we know monotonous tasks simply cannot provide. Dopamine, though nicknamed the pleasure molecule, is a little more complicated than just that. It gives us the desire to wake up in the mornings and do things with our life. Let me illustrate with a study. Scientists did an experiment where they inserted electrodes in the brains of rats. Whenever the rats pulled a lever, the researchers simulated the rat's reward system in the brain with a burst of dopamine. The rats became so addicted that they pulled the lever continuously without even stopping to eat or sleep, and would continue until they passed out from fatigue. In another experiment, scientists blocked the release of dopamine in the brains of rats, and the rats became so lazy that they did not even have the motivation to eat or drink when food was placed right next to them. However, if the food was placed in their mouths, they would still eat and enjoy the food. They just did not have the motivation to find the food themselves. Your brain develops priorities in large parts based on how much dopamine it is expecting to get. Dopamine is released by the effect your brain anticipates. If you are planning on eating a slice of cake, your brain releases dopamine before you even put a bite of it in your mouth, because your brain is expecting the cake to taste like heaven. On the contrary, the cake only does harm to your body. Almost all actions release dopamine, even drinking water does. However, the most dopamine is released when it occurs randomly, and minimal effort is invested in acquiring the dopamine rush. For instance, winning at a casino, playing video games, or eating tasty foods. That's why we constantly check our phones, for the dopamine burst that comes with a social media notification or text. We are becoming like the rats that are desperate for a shot of dopamine and will do anything for a hit. Now let's switch gears and talk about tolerance. It takes someone who has never had alcohol before only 1 cup to get drunk, but someone who drinks a lot 3 cups to get drunk, because their body is less sensitive to the effects of alcohol. Therefore, it takes more of it to bring about the same intoxicating effect due to their body's quest for homeostasis or balance. A similar thing occurs with dopamine. We are met with an influx of dopamine-releasing activities in our lifestyle. Chewing gum, playing video games, checking email notifications. Our body then tries to maintain homeostasis, so it downregulates the dopamine receptors. However, our brain is accustomed to and craves high levels of dopamine as before, so it now takes more of these high dopamine-releasing activities to cause the same sense of pleasure. This is a problem because things that don't immediately provide high levels of dopamine become very difficult for us to feel motivated to do. This is why drug addicts, once they stop taking a drug, have difficulty adjusting to normal life. They are used to having high levels of dopamine and have high dopamine tolerance, and normal life simply does not provide that much dopamine, causing them to feel unmotivated and crave dopamine bursts. They become like the rats that have no motivation to do anything. This phenomenon is not unique to drugs. The same thing happens to people who are always checking their phones for notifications or playing video games. They are unable to complete low dopamine releasing tasks. So now that we know how momentous of a problem this is, how do we fix it? We do what I like to call a dopamine detox. Similar to a cleansing diet, but for your mind. Pick one day where you remove all sources of external pleasure and dopamine hits. No internet, phone, electronics, junk food, etc. Anything that provides short-term gratification with minimal effort on your part is off limits. You can, however, exercise, journal, go outside, and most importantly, get work done. This boredom will propel you to do important tasks that don't give a high dopamine release. This detox may seem drastic, but this was what our ancestors from just about 100 years ago did on a daily basis. However, the exact restrictions are up to you, so feel free to make it more strict or relax it according to your lifestyle. Some people prefer to abstain from one activity, such as social media or junk food, for just 1 day a week. Why does this work? Because it changes your perspective and baseline expectations. It sets the bar for your daily expected dopamine levels at a lower place. Think of it like this. To a millionaire who is accustomed to eating at 5-star hotels daily, a slice of plain bread seems like garbage. However, to someone who is starving on an island, the same slice of plain bread seems like heaven. Currently, you are accustomed to having a high dopamine release for tasks that require minimal effort. The dopamine detox resets your expectations to not expect a high dopamine release for all activities. In other words, it makes you so bored that even boring activities seem interesting. However, since all of us are addicted to dopamine to some extent, we can attempt to use this dopamine burst to our advantage. Once we complete all of our important but inevitably boring tasks for the day, we can reward ourselves with high dopamine activities. Keyword being after. If we indulge in high dopamine activities, like watching the TV or using your phone prior to boring tasks like studying or working feels even more boring because the dopamine bar is set so high. This is why scrolling through your phone first thing in the morning or while eating breakfast sets you up for failure. Your expectations for dopamine and pleasure for the day are set at an insanely high level. To conclude, we need to train our brains to not expect a high dopamine release all the time. And we do this by lowering the normal level. Remember, dopamine is not a bad thing. It's a great thing, in fact. It motivates us to wake up in the morning and chase our goals. We just have to choose where we get dopamine from wisely. From things that don't benefit us, or from things that help us reach our goals. Remember, as Jim Grant said, we must all suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something. Please do subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you did like it, and don't forget to share it with family or friends who you think might benefit from it as well.